Okay, good evening everybody. This week is the last week for the shorts before our summer recess. We return for the community Monday evenings on the 9th of September, and the next short will be on Wednesday the 11th of September, which is a public access event for 30 minutes at most Wednesdays, but as my regulars know, I just do these in academic term time because I go off and do my primary research for my PhD in photography. When we return in the autumn or fall, we're going to be doing 3 months of editing. And the reason why 3 months of editing, we're going to look at each night actions and tasks, but in different user interfaces. So let's just do something really, really simple. Setting the black and the white point in Classic. But how does that happen on a web browser? Because Lightroom is available on a web browser. How is that in Camera Raw? How does that work in Lightroom on a desktop, on a laptop, on an iPad, iPhone, or whatever? So each week we will look at tasks and we'll edit images, and we'll go through a workflow of creating a base edit, working from the library module or the local or cloud tab in Lightroom, and we will build and build and build, but we'll do it step by step in different interfaces. Now, why are we going to do that? Well, you don't always sit in front of a computer. You have got Lightroom on your phone, on your tablet, or perhaps you're on a cruise or on holiday in a hotel and you want to get your images back to your computer or a backup of them, but you want to edit them, and there is no Lightroom. Well, you can do all that in the cloud. So having each task and understanding what it looks like and how you can do the same functionality in different user interfaces is a great way of understanding the action that you're doing. So that's the workflow for the autumn. So it's roughly 12-14 weeks until the Christmas recess, and each week we will go through editing, stylizing, so base editing, stylizing across all the different user interfaces. So tonight we're going to spend 20 minutes or so looking at some hidden features within the develop module of Classic. Now, some of these you will know, some of these you might not know, but I just put together 3 sections with little hidden functionalities and modifying keys. I love modifying keys, and I can never remember them all. Different keystrokes in different places do different actions. So, but we'll go through some, and I'll give you some tips for what I've found over the years that's helped me. So it might not help you, you may already know them, and why I do them. And I find that really important, is to explain not just the action, but why, what's the benefit to that action. Okay, everyone happy with that? So without further ado, let's share screen. Okay, so I'm running Classic version 13.3, which is the latest version of Classic as of July 2024. So this is an image that I have a base edit. That means I've done all my sensor spots, I've done my black and white points, I've just tweaked the exposure slightly globally, I've corrected any alignments, all those type of things, but it is not stylized. Okay, and I'm going to miss out on all those bits there, and actually what I will do in my normal workflow to show you my thinking. So the first thing I want to do is I want to correct the exposure, but I want to do that locally. Now, a lot of people, and there is no, please don't get me wrong, there's no right or wrong way of doing any form of editing. It's subjective, it's art. You and your thinking may say, oh, I prefer doing it this way. and that's totally fine. All I'm doing is sharing my experience over years. This is how I do it, and provoke you to think about, oh, that's a different way of doing it, and I didn't realise to do that. So I'm going to come to the local mask tool, and I'm going to select the sky. So the AI, it doesn't leave your computer, the image, is going to select the sky. And I have a green overlay. It's my standard colour usually for my overlays, green. And what I always do is I double click on the word mask and I will name it. So that's my sky. So I know, because sometimes I might have 20 or 30 masks where I'm dodging and burning, and I want to know which one is doing which. So I will do that immediately. Now, if we come to the right, we can turn off the mask or turn off the local selection, turn it back on again. But there's 3 dots. And this isn't the hidden functionality, because people that do masks will already know this. But we can invert the mask. Now, what does that do? Everything that is currently selected, it's going to switch it. So what is not selected is going to be selected. What isn't selected, what is selected is not going to be selected. So we're just flipping it. Okay, so we can invert the mask, and now it's no longer the masks. So it's no longer the sky. So I will now rename this, not sky. Okay, so I know it's the foreground. Now this is where my Wacom pen and tablet comes in, because I have pressure sensitivity on my tablet. But I might want to adjust a particular area, so the grass, so I can turn off my overlay. Okay, so my grass is quite dark. But if I currently put an adjustment, so if we go to tonality and turn the exposure, I'm also brightening the church and the road, which is currently quite bright. So what I can do is I can click on the mask and subtract, and I could use brush or I could use object, but in this case I'm just going to use the brush, and it's come up with a minus in the middle, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller, and I'm going to turn on my auto mask, and I'm just going to paint over the white. Okay, and whatever is the tonality in the circle is going to be affected. So I'm subtracting this white from the actual mask itself. Okay, so if I go back, I can subtract again, brush, and I can subtract the church. So again, I'm just painting over it, and I'm subtracting. As long as I don't go over the edges, I'm just subtracting. Now, it doesn't matter which way you do this, but you can adjust the sliders, and you can put your amount. So how much of that slider do you want to affect? And you dance between the two. And this is great for when you use presets on a mask. So we can come up to a preset, and we could ask for an adaptive preset. We can apply a preset to the mask, and how much of that. So where historically we have adjusted the exposure, but if I wanted to increase the contrast and bring my highlights down on this mask, I can then adjust the amount slider for each of those adjustments. So it's doing it in uniformity. It's not just doing one slider. So if I reduce it by, let's say, 25 or 225, that is halfway, and it will take half of these out. So it's reducing all the sliders by half. And a lot of people don't realize that, where you can either increase it or decrease, and it's affecting all the sliders on that mask. Okay? Everyone all right with that? Now, there is, most people will know, a backslash key. So let's come out of here, hit the backslash key, before and after, before and after. So we can see immediately from where we started to where I am. And I like using this before and after, because I can immediately see the differences. Okay? Now, what you can do, if I come to my history panel, I can come to a point. So let's say rename sky here. I can go right click and I can copy history. Where is it? Right click. There is, here it is. So before and after. So this middle menu, copy history setting to before and after. When I do my Y, that's where it's going to jump back to, not further back to the beginning. So there's another little hidden tip here. So it's right click, middle one in the history, and you can tell it that's when I go backslash, it will go to there. Okay. Now if I want to see them side by side, most of you know, just press the Y key. Then if I press tab, I can see them side by side. Before, and that was the before at that point. So if I bring back and if I set my, so let's go to there and then go reset there. Now if I go Y again, now it's jumping back to this place where I added vibrance in my workflow. So this is now, this is before. Now another little hidden tip, press L and we get what they call lights out mode. So now we can focus. There's 2 different or 3 different modes. This is your normal mode. Then it goes into dim mode and then it goes into full dark mode. And you can select the darkness in the preferences. So there's your next one. Zooming in. If I wanted to zoom in here and have a look, let's say what the mask's like, I can, both images will go in at the same time. Okay, so I can compare both of the images. Okay, and if I just click on it again, it'll go out. So wherever the mouse is, wherever I'm clicking, it will click in and click out. Bear in mind this is a raw file and I've only just started editing it. Okay, so everyone all right with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where else we go? Okay, so sliders. Now, when we move these sliders, they move quite, especially with the mouse, and it's a little bit different for me because I have a pen. They move quite a bit. And this is, I'm doing this globally at the moment. So let's just increase the brightness. Let's bring down the vibrance slightly, bring down the saturation a little bit. Let's open up the shadows a little bit. There we go. Let's bring down the highlights. Okay, so something like that very, very quickly. But these sliders, when you're using a mouse, can move quite a lot. As in quite quickly, the sensitivity is quite strong. But what you can do is, obviously, you can click in the box and you can type in a number. But if you hold the Shift key down, then they don't move that fast. It's like a slow speed. Okay, you can go up in 0.1s and 0.2s and so on. So by holding the Shift key down. Now, if you double click on the pointers, they reset. Okay, so if you just want to see what it looks like at 0, you can just double click on the highlight slider and it resets. But if you hold your Shift key down and double click on the names, Lightroom is like hitting the auto button for that slider. So if I want to see what white is, the white point, that technically the white point that Lightroom thinks, hold my Shift key down, click on the word white, and it will set it for me. Click on the word black or double click and it will set my black point. Okay, so there's a couple more there. last three, we're going to look at snapshots, not to be confused with virtual copies. So if I like where I am, so let's go back to the sky. Let's bring in our sky. So there's our sky mask. And let's just bring down the exposure slightly and increase the clarity of that. So something like that. Press close. Now if I like that, I can record this moment in time. Okay, so I can just go right click, create a snapshot, and I can just call it whatever I want to call it, and it creates this snapshot. And there we go, snapshot, there it is there. Now if I wanted to, I could go back to where we were. Let's go back here and make another edit. So let's just increase our exposure. Can't bring the highlights down anymore. And I go, don't quite like what it's going to. Well, I've lost all my edits above because I've jumped back in my timeline and made an adjustment. Well, a snapshot will bring that back. And there we go. So a snapshot is recording your edit and your history at a moment in time. Okay? Right, so if you sit there and go, I want to record this, boom, create a snapshot and it records it and then go off into a different direction. Now, I don't use snapshots a lot, but it's really, really good, especially if you're cropping. You want to crop and see what it's like. I much prefer the workflow of virtual copies. And the reason why I like virtual copies, so we go right click, create a virtual copy, which is there. Okay, so now we'll go G, and we'll just wait for it to, there we go, is I can compare them in the survey mode side by side. Okay, and I can create lots of different stylizations. So let's just go to this one quickly. I'm just going to wait for it to load. Come on, load. Auto, black and white. There we go. So there's my black and white. If I go G, select all, N, I can see them side by side. With a snapshot, you can't. It just jumps between them side by side. Remembering, a virtual copy is just a line in the database. So there is some hidden settings within the develop module. Okay, snapshots really powerful. You're recording your moment in time. Okay, so if you want to, I like that, but I'm now going to go on. I prefer virtual copies, and that's a part of my workflow of creating a base edit, then virtual copies. But once I've got my edit, I like that. I now want to play around with a crop. I will create different versions of crop on the same image after I've edited it. Holding your shift key down will set, and clicking on the name, so exposure, white, black, contrast, whatever, holding your shift key down, double clicking on the name will put auto settings, the technical settings that Lightroom thinks it wants to do, on the slider, only on the slider. Where if you hit the auto button, it'll do all of them. Okay. If you double click on the little pin, the pointer that slides up and down, that will reset it to 0. You can press Control or Command and it will come up and say reset all, and you can reset all the sliders. Holding the shift key down and moving the slider will give you a finer detail, or you can click in the box and type the number in there. Y will show you compare before and after. Okay, or use backslash. Backslash, you'll see that where it is in the point of history you've set the compare to, and it toggles backwards and forwards. Okay, so keep hitting the backslash and backwards and forwards, and you see your current and your original, or wherever you set the point. Okay, so it's great to see jumping backwards and forwards and looking at a particular area. Perhaps you've done a mask around a tree or a building, so you see the fringing, or whether there's any purple fringing or the difference in the contrast, and you can zoom in and look at that part and just keep pressing the button and say, yes, I like that, no, I don't, is it too dark, too light, and you can go back and adjust it. So I like using that back. So there's subtleties in the tool for different functionality. Why? Compare side by side, or as many as you like you can do in the survey mode. And using the amount slider will adjust all the sliders you've done for that particular local mask. So if you've increased the brightness, taken down your darks, and you want to dilute or amplify those multiple settings in that mask, use the amount slider. And there's an amount slider in the presets. You can increase the preset or decrease the preset, make it weaker or stronger. And there you go, and there's some hidden settings in the develop module of Classic. Anyone got any questions?
I don't have any questions, Mark, but I took a couple of photographs up in Scotland, and I think I'm just going to play with that. I was scribbling notes as you were talking. That was really good, actually. That was really good.
Thank you, Gary. Well, this will be up on YouTube as a recording for people to refer back to. I suggest to a lot of people that you actually you create a second catalogue and put a few images in there, and those images are in a different location to your main images. So for example, you might have an external drive with all your Lightroom images in, but you might have a second folder that's at the same parent level, and you might call it Lightroom Practice and put a catalogue in there, call it Lightroom Practice. And if you just want to mess around with editing and so on, with half a dozen images in there, it won't sync to the cloud. You can only have one catalogue that syncs to the cloud. But it means that you're not playing with your main images, your main catalogue. And all you do is you create a copy of your images and put them in that folder. And just play. Just play with them. And you've got that little bit of comfort knowing that you can play with them and you're not messing up your main images. So, yes, Jay?
Would you go over the density, the thing at top of the sliders, and how it affects how much? I don't quite get that.
Okay, so let's say you increase the brightness by 1 stop.
Yeah.
You open up the shadows by half a stop. But then you sit there and go, oh, actually, I want to increase both of those sliders. So rather than you increase the exposure, you increase that. You can say, well, it's at 50. If I want to double it, I'll put it at 75. So I put the opacity to 75. So it increases it. But it increases both sliders by the same amount. Does that make sense?
Yes. Now, how did you make it be just those 2 sliders?
It's the sliders that are selected in the local adjustment. So it's all the sliders in that local adjustment. So I'm in the local adjustment, and if I've got 3 sliders, it's 3 things that I'm adjusting. If I've got 4 sliders, it's 4 sliders I'm adjusting. If you want it to affect less things, then you need to create a new mask. So duplicate the mask. So you just click on the mask, click on the dots and duplicate it, and just apply the 2 develop settings that you want to that mask. And then, so you've got 2 masks on the physical location, and you only want to increase the brightness and the shadows. So that's on one mask. On the other mask, you might have contrast, dehaze, clarity, texture, and vibrance. That will be on another mask in the same area, perhaps, but you don't want those affected. So what you're doing is you're either amplifying the mask and the effects on that mask, or you're diluting but you're diluting them by the same, or amplifying by the same amount.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, two squashes. Yeah. I've got two glasses with water in them, and I'm putting more lemon in this one and less lemon in this one. That's exactly the same thing. They're the same glass, same size of glass, same amount of water, but I'm amplifying the taste of lemon in this one compared to the other one.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the other one's got contrast, dehaze, and so on, etc.
And the default of that opacity is what, like 50 or?
Yeah, 50 in the middle. Yeah.
50. Got it. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that is very powerful. Being able to do the auto on the individual sliders. That's really, oh man, that's really, I mean, that really lit a bell in my head.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, so rather than hitting the auto button, which a lot of time is very good, but it might not be the way that you want to go, the way that you got in your mind that I'm going to develop this image.
Right.
Yeah. So you might just want to say, well, give me the auto, and there are other ways of doing black and white points, holding modifying keys down and sliding them and so on, etc. And we'll look at that in the fall. But if you hit the auto button and go, oh no, that's too bright, that's too this, because it's a technical setting. And again, this is what Adobe is saying by putting things in the cloud. It can learn and make those adjustments better for you. Now, what do we want to do? Do we want to go out and take photographs, or do we want to sit here and edit?
Right.
Yeah. So by Adobe learning particular things, and it's whether you're for or against, and I'm for it in some ways and against it in other narratives. But if it can learn and help me spend less time here in front of my computer, then I'm all for it. And that's why I keep tweaking my workflow and the way I do things, whether it's Lightroom, whether it's Classic, and hedging more towards Lightroom, because I have my Lightroom and the drive that I put my images on. When I import them into Classic, because I do it locally now rather than in the cloud, it takes all my edits that I've done in Lightroom. So I haven't got to duplicate things, I haven't got to do anything more, I haven't got to sync anything. It's on an external drive on my computer, Lightroom looks at it, I edit them, the adjustments are placed into the actual file, and when I import those into Classic, it imports all the edits. So it's adjusting the workflows, etc., and so on. But we'll look at all that in the autumn. Anyone else got any questions? No? Well, I hope that's of help. So
I've got a
Jay?
comment. This isn't a question, but it's a comment. I read yesterday Tom Hogan, a guy I really respect.
Yeah, I know Tom.
And he was talking about auto and cameras, and he said he used the analogy of full self-driving. Elon Musk and been promising full self-driving, and he said auto and camera is full self-photography. He said, however, you have to understand that when it's on auto, if you set it to auto ISO, it's changing other aspects too. It's not just changing the ISO. And that really struck me, because auto is very good, but it's changing a lot of things, not just the exposure. And driving, if you're a car person, you like to drive it yourself. You don't want to have. Well, the same thing with photography. Auto can be convenient, but actually, I want to have control over all those aspects.
Correct. And program is again, it's an auto functionality, but it doesn't do as much as what auto does. So you can use, if I remember rightly, exposure compensation in program. You can't in auto. So yes, so they're but remember, photography is art. Art is subjective. They're giving you technical and computer software engineers and AI engineers, this is what we think you want. Well, that's not what I want. I want to tell this story, and the uniqueness of the creativity is what manual does.
Right.
It's our voice, it's our light, it's our thought, it's our expression, not a software engineer or a computer working those things out for us.
Right.
And we wouldn't have had Harry Potter and all those J.K. Rowling and Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings and so on, because it was their creativity. And when we ask AI to do things, we say, write a particular book in the style of da-da-da-da. It needs to reference back to these things, these original creators. And that's where, in my opinion, where the manual comes in. It's being the original creator. So Dyson vacuum cleaners was the original bagless vacuum cleaner. Lots of people copied it. He was the original creator. And the uniqueness of that. So going off topic, but yeah. Anyway, any more questions?
That was a lot for a short, but thank you very much.
Yeah, 30 minutes. I try very hard to give them 30 minutes. Sometimes maybe knocking on to 40, 45. And so it's the last one until Wednesday, the 11th of September, where we will look at lots of different things that we don't do on a Monday. So we might dip into the other modules. We'll look at syncing, because syncing has now changed since 13.3. I did a blog post about it the other day. I've got some videos come out. There'll be lots of things on my YouTube that I've already recorded that we staggered out over these weeks. If you're a member to Monday night, you'll get a link each week with your 20-minute support group session that you can book. So if you've got a problem, don't hesitate to drop me an email or book a session that we can have a one-to-one Zoom. It's a live calendar link, so you can see, I'm available 8 o'clock on that evening or 10 o'clock during the day or whatever. Just book it. You'll automatically get the Zoom details, and we'll have a 20-minute Zoom wherever you are. And it is in the time you see, Jay, is in your time zone. So you can
okay.
So you just say, Friday, 10 a.m., that's your time zone.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So you just book your... So when I send you an email and say, look, just book your 20 minutes, right? And they're totally free for members. So you got a question, you need help, and you dealt in 20 minutes, just book that. You'll get all the Zoom details and an email automatically, and it'll put it in my diary. And it live looks at my diary. So if I'm not available, you won't get the option to book it. Okay, so you got confidence knowing that I'm available, and so on. So, and you get a link that you can click on it, and if your situation changes, you can adjust the appointment. Say, I'm not available. Something's happened. I've now got to go and take the wife somewhere. 10 o'clock. Can I make it now 4 o'clock in the afternoon? You click on the link in the email, and you can reschedule it for 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The Zoom details all stay the same. If I'm available at 4 o'clock, it'll give you the 4 o'clock window.
Great. Oh, that's
all right.
great. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a very productive summer break.
Well, it's academic research, so it's...
Well, that's what I mean by productive.
It's about space and thinking. So that's where a lot of you read all this stuff and so on, and it whizzes around your head, and you look at your notes and so on, etc. Your field notes and your research notes, and then you're going to try and apply them in real life, in practice. And sometimes, you might go somewhere. My last trip went somewhere. I think I took 4 pictures in 7 days because you're just thinking. So anyway, lovely to see you all.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Mark.
Take care.
Thank you, Mark.
Take care, everyone.
All the best. Bye.
Now, bye-bye.
Bye.